I'm going to hope that this all works out. But hello, everyone. Welcome to the Jankyard. I'm your host. You're definitely awake, not just recently asleep host. And with me, I have the wonderful Mr. Wisdomus and the one who's prepared to talk, the one and only Schmendrix.
I'm never really awake, so that's my secret.
Uh,
Just always be half asleep.
Good
And
to
then,
know.
you learn to perform under any conditions. Um, but yeah, thank you for waking up to do this late night stream with me.
Oh, I'm so excited. There's nothing more exciting
I
than
can
doing a stream
tell,
with you.
especially when we're talking about data
Oh, yeah.
and
That's
analysis.
It's visualization. You'll do
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
analysis. I'll just do the pretty clicking. I'm excited because we've talked about this for like weeks now, and we're finally getting together to do it. So there you go. Anything to give the people more content, especially Mr. Dijon, who says he only likes bite-sized half-hour content. So let's try and keep it to a reasonable time. Hey,
Ha!
Shadow. Yeah.
I wish.
Let's see.
I
What do
mean,
I
yes, we'll do our best. We can be snappy.
we can totally be snappy. All right, so I'm gonna pop it. What do I do? Want to pop it up? Yeah, I'll just pop it over so that we can. Well, this is Ash Techie, but we got the very lovely, exciting looking Vermillion Ash's game report. It is a
Yep.
very white screen. So tell us what we're doing here.
Okay, so way back when in 2023, I think it was, maybe 2024. Um, During the collection, it was 2024. I took the Ashes chat logs, and when I was first experimenting with um, using it, I set up a spreadsheet. I was initially going to try and experiment with using generative AI to parse a game, but AI was not really up to the task at that point, and so I ended up developing basically some Excel code that would parse a game. And I made these PowerPoint charts that were snazzy, and I was trying to make them for various games. And what I was doing was trying to understand who was holding a dice advantage on the battlefield at the time, and then also calculating some efficiency statistics. Fast forward, LLMs have gotten better. Started getting interested in experimenting with vibe coding, both for my personal entertainment and to build a new skill that I could potentially use professionally. And so decided it'd be fun to try and take that initial idea and turn it into an automated parser. And so there's no LLM work going on here when you run this thing, but an LLM helped code the parser that takes the chat and turns it into the statistics you'll see. So that's a little bit behind it. The way that we're thinking about games here is deeply informed by a lot of the conversation that happens about competitive ashes on the Discord server. And it really frames the tug of war in ashes around the resource advantage that you're able to achieve or maintain. And that resource advantage specifically focused on dice. So you can obviously have card advantage, so you can be drawing more cards than your opponents, and you can get permanent card advantage functionally by having cards in your spell board, especially if you have a bigger spell board than your opponent. But what makes Ashes, I think, very distinctive beyond the first five is the resource system where we have a fixed resource pool for each player. So you get 10 dice at the beginning of each round. You can only get 10. If you don't spend all 10, you don't get 12 next round. You just get 10 again. So you're really incentivized to use all 10 of those resources. You're only going to get 10. And the players are on equal footing there. So the decks aren't really competing for their ability to generate the fundamental resource of the game, which is dice. There's extremely limited dice recursion, basically only for dice powers via things like Reimagine and Royal Charm. And that, I think, makes it more analyzable in some ways than a game like Magic, actually, Magic the Gathering, where you have to deal with a whole bunch of complexity of whether or not, which player is getting more of their lands to the table, blah, blah, blah. I don't really analyze Magic, so I'm not going to go too far into that. So what this tool is really focused on doing is taking the chat, parsing every event that happens in the game. Every unit that gets played is assigned a dice value based on what it costs to spend it, with some exceptions, which I can talk about if it's useful. Like there are some units that don't really cost dice to play, and we want to give them some value in the game. And then it's tracking how many dice are left in your pool. And the other insight here is something that I think those of us who've watched really experienced players play have noticed, which is that in addition to obviously getting units onto the battlefield, playing spells, um, it's also a question of timing. So, like, how many resources are you withholding? So, um, given that we're starting each round with 10 dice available for us to spend, if we want to carry over value, because we can't carry over dice in our dice pool, the way we're going to do it is we're going to carry over value generally on the battlefield. So, like, if we have a 3 dice knight that survives from round 1 into round 2, we're effectively playing with 13 dice versus our opponent's 10 because we've already got 3 dice worth of units on the battlefield ready to go. So that is the carryover value, and then that you'll see here. And then sorry, I was getting to timing and got distracted to talk about carryover value. So the question of timing is how many dice are we spending how quickly in a round? So like really experienced players like Brian B is I think a master at this. Carl, total master at this. Evie Fritz has been playing a deck that I think really plays into this. I think he's just generally, I mean, an exceptional player. They are often spending dice more slowly than their opponent. So if you think about dice expenditure then going onto the battlefield, if I play a 3 dice knight onto the battlefield, I'm down to 7 dice in my dice pool. If my opponent has 10 dice left, they've got more options for how to deal with my knight potentially available to them. And so I've made a battlefield investment, but they still have the option of what to do with that in the form of their dice pool. And so we're looking at this tool is going to be tracking basically 2 resource advantages. One is who has more dice remaining to be spent in the round, and then which player has more dice of, of value in units on the battlefield.
I'm gonna
Um,
I'm gonna just maybe stop you for a second
yeah,
and let's how about we pull up at least a game so that we can use it as an example.
sure.
Because there's a lot of
Yeah, let me.
terms I think that will be
Yeah,
more useful to illustrate. I guess I didn't open the how to read
If you-
the charts, but you've added
yeah. Can
something
you?
very
Yeah,
helpful
can
there.
you click that? Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you have that open?
I do now. Yeah, and
Okay.
I'll in the meantime I'll just prepare a game.
Okay.
So you've got the how to read the charts.
Can you
Um,
paste the chat in our chat, um, Discord chat too, and that way I can um, pull it up at the same time. So
yeah,
I'll just, yeah. So this tool is basically going to be looking at this tug of war between, each player's total dice value of units played on the battlefield, their health over the course of the game, and um, it's going to be characterizing the game state based on who's ahead on the battlefield, who's ahead in their dice pool, whether one player has advantages in both. Um, and it's also going to be tracking things like health and the attacks that you make. So the chart layers that you're going to see here are you can see the 2 players' health bars or health lines. You can see this total resource advantage. So like if my opponent has spent 3 more dice and I have 4 more dice of units on the battlefield, I've got a total resource advantage of 7 in that case. The dice advantage, meaning who's got more dice left to spend in the round. The battlefield value, who's got more dice worth of units on the battlefield. And then attacks. So we're just going to track attacks just so we can have a better sense of what's going on.
I
So
forget
those are the charts that we're going to see.
how do I can I just copy the chat from the chat clipboard? Let's how to
Yeah.
tell people how to do this. Okay.
Yeah, so just copy the chat from a chat clipboard and then paste it into the game chat.
All right. So should be okay. So and I'll send that to you as well. How do I send you information? Where the heck is the where's the chat in our video chat? Oh, it's because I popped it out.
Mm,
That's why. No. Oh, yeah. That worked. I think that's it.
got it.
All right.
Yep, got it.
All right. And it was that easy. Copy pasted. Holy moly, look at this beautiful information. So, just
Yeah, so
for clarification to people who might
yeah.
want to do this on their own, because I'm the dummy here, um, just like our viewers. So you go to Ashteki. If you're doing this for a replay, I should have sort of walked through this. You click on replay, you load a file. In this case, I loaded one of the collection games, hit start, and then you have to jump to the end of the game so that you get the entire chat log. Otherwise, you're only getting the opening game log information, which is nothing. Copy to clipboard up in the top right, and that's what goes in the tool. If you're not doing it from a replay, or like from someone else's replay, you can go to results, I believe, game list, and the game chat is available right away. And this is the same thing. So you can copy this
Yeah.
into the tool, and then you get this pretty looking thing, which has got a whole lot of stuff. So back to
Yeah.
you, Mr. Wisdomus.
Okay. So I just want to say a couple things quickly. This isn't perfect, despite all my best efforts. The there's still some things that'll miss. I'm actually going to push updates. I was working on some updates before we got on, while I waited for you to wake up, or maybe not wake up tonight. But you did, so congratulations. One of the things that really can't handle is mirror matches. So don't load a mirror match. I don't know how to. There's some things Dijon's going to have to help me with by fixing the way chat logs are presented. So look, there's still some edge cases that this doesn't work well with. I think let's stick with the health layer and just look at the health chart. So we see the two lines going down. James as EB Fritz and Koji as Carl NIU Math. And the reason neither one goes down to 0 is because this game ends by concession. So EB Fritz concedes, and Carl wins. So we're not, the other finals game. We may want to pull that up after this one.
Yeah,
If you can.
we can do a
Treatment. Yeah.
comparison for sure.
But so you can see the two health. You can see the sort of pattern. You've got all of the rounds and turns at the bottom. So every turn or pair of turns is going to be recorded here. So we're recording pairs of turns. So if you just click on the first dot in the chart treatment, like either one, you'll see the chat log come up to the right for that particular
Oh, very fancy.
turn, so you can actually see what was going on if you suspect something weird is happening. All of the little abbreviations in the chat are the dice that are being used. So
Right.
NC is nature class, DP is divine power.
Time basic to time power.
Right.
Yeah, got it.
So that's the basic health pattern. You've then got these light gold parts of the chart. Do you see the kind of light gold that runs down vertically the chart?
Yes.
Those are turns where there's a big resource swing in the game. So one of the two players has basically swung the net resource or the total resource advantage one direction or the other by at least 2 resources. So let's say they've managed to kill a knight with a light swordsman attack.
Yeah, I'll
that
just
would
go
be a
to
2
the
resources
first
swing.
one. The first
Yeah.
one says NIU math. I'm gonna use the username in this case, even though we know it's Carl, just for anybody who's trying to use this. Attacks Sonic Swordsman with a Cinder Spirit, and EB Fritz uses James to guard. He takes 2 damage, and then he attacks Cinder Spirit with a Sonic Swordsman. Cinder Spirit takes 3 and is destroyed.
Right. So he's gotten a 2 resource advantage. Now he gave up because he removed a Cinder Spirit that's worth 2 dice. His swordsman didn't die. He spent 2 life to do that because he guarded from the Cinder Spirit attack to keep the Sonic Swordsman
Mm-hmm.
alive. But he swung the resources towards him, and it's those little advantages that can accrete over the course of a game and deliver you ultimately the win, especially if you're a very battlefield focused deck. So taking language from Matt Bowers and Charlotte and lots of others who are focused on hype plays, those are kind of the moments in the game that you might want to look at to really understand what was going on in the game. And often what I'll do when I'm starting to explore game is I'll look at those turns and then look back a couple turns just to see how things played out or got to that point. We don't have to do that now, but just to continue to orient you.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. It's useful if you like in this particular setup. I don't think I'm gonna have it going, but to have like the game replay file going at the exact same time,
right.
um,
Yeah.
that would be useful. Oops,
Yeah.
never update.
So
Okay, so that's health.
yeah, let me just say one more thing, and then we'll get
Yeah.
into the other ones. On the along the bottom is this game state description, and this um, Fred provided the language for this. And basically, what this is describing is where what the state of play is. So anytime there's purple, there's a split between who's got the battlefield advantage and who has the dice advantage, meaning who's committed more resources to the field. Um, and things are even. So no one has an overall resource advantage, and one player has a um, battlefield advantage, and another player will have a excuse me, a dice advantage.
Yeah,
Um,
you've added that in the information as well because
yeah,
anything Fred says takes multiple doses for it to partially sink in. So I had
yeah,
to wrap my head around what this meant. So thankfully it's up here for those of you who don't want to rewatch this whole video. But yeah, it's really just dice advantage versus onboard advantage, which makes
right,
sense because that's sort of how we measure or how we've always discussed um, like when valuing a card or when valuing when to guard. Like in this very particular case that I selected, where new players especially either guard too early or might not know when to guard, and this is sort
right,
of exemplifies like, okay, you're saving a big unit and you're getting a counter swing that does damage, and it sort of shows how that translates into a resource swing that you can then use to, I guess, effectively measure whether it was a good thing to do or not.
right. Um, and those splits, I have to take another look at the splits because I think um, it may struggle to parse when things are really when like one player's ahead in their side of the turn and then the other player evens on their side of the turn. It's going to be tricky. So, but generally speaking, the split is like things are very close. One player's ahead on the battlefield, one player's ahead on dice. And then there are these other advantages. So dominant position, you're winning on both. You're ahead on both battlefield and dice. Committed advantages, you are significantly ahead on the battlefield, and but maybe behind on dice or even. Um, and then there's this unrealized advantage where you're even on the battlefield, but you're ahead on dice. So you've kind of fought to parity, but you have some dice left in reserve. So these are generally just giving you a sense of like how things are going. And one of the things that I really like about this is when you look at the course of a game, you'll see some patterns like, mill decks are almost never ahead on the battlefield. Like they're always behind on the battlefield. They might be ahead on dice, but they do amazing things from behind. Burn decks are pretty similar, actually. They're often behind consistently over the course of the game.
Yeah.
So if we, yeah,
When we've talked about like Brian B as a player, for instance, we've talked a lot about how it seems that he's always sort of even on board, but he has, you know, 9 dice when the other player's down to two.
right,
So that would be a unrealized advantage for
right.
him most of the time. Okay.
Um, well, if he's even on board and has a dice advantage,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
it'd be an unrealized advantage. So then let's unclick health so we don't have the health bar distracting us and just look at total resource advantage. Um,
Oh, bar graphs.
yeah, so this is just showing you like the net of where folks are, and if you hover over a graph, you can see what the situation is. So like if you hover over round 1, turn 11, you can see um, Koji's ahead. He's in a dominant position. He's got a total resource advantage of 2 on dice and battlefield. And I think what really like about this view is it really shows you who's winning over the course of the rounds. So like it shows you that James really built up this big advantage in round 2. So that's EB Fritz, and he couldn't keep it. Like he couldn't maintain that round 2 advantage through round 3. So round 3 was this very even round, especially in the early phases, as Carl basically regains possession of the battlefield and the game. And then he carries that advantage significantly into round 4 to the point that he basically convinces EV Fritz to concede that he's not going to be able to get back into the game. So these this general shape of the game tells a story, I think, by itself, and one that you can then go back to the game log to really understand what was driving these moments. Um, it might be interesting just to look at, again, this is where looking at the resource swings plus these bars can be interesting. So like there's this big swing towards James, it looks like in round
Right.
2, turn 7.
Round two,
Um,
turn 7. Oh yeah, it's a huge one.
yeah,
So in this case, it's really cool that we have the chat to go back to, so that you don't just have to watch the game. But so Fritz plays light swordsman, attacks a wolf pack leader on NIU's side, and kills it. It's destroyed, and then NIU plays another wolf pack leader into play, and
right.
then
He's
he also uses Cinder Spirit to put a token onto that wolf leader and put the Cinder Spirit into play. So that's he eats the one wolf pack leader dying, and now there's an
right.
exhausted light swordsman on the board. But then all of a sudden he's got 4 units worth of value put onto the field. So how come
Yeah.
that is a swing in EB Fritz or the James player's favor?
Yeah, so I'm trying to unpack that actually because there may be a parsing problem here, or we maybe just be picking up one half of the turn. So yeah, danger of doing it live. But I mean, a lot's going on here. I mean, one thing is that Carl is playing quite a lot of dice. So because this is looking at total resource advantage, just moving um, dice from his unspent to the battlefield isn't really going to produce a dice advantage necessarily. It's the removing of the units that's going to do it. So
Right.
he's taking a lot of units or a lot of dice from his unspent pool and putting them into play. EB Fritz gained a little bit by attacking the unit with the light swordsman and destroying it. That was actually the 2 resource advantage swing there was the killing of the wolf pack leader because the light swordsman wasn't destroyed. So like
Right.
what you're actually seeing here in some sense is the value of quick strike, which has made light swordsman a really popular unit that it is almost always going to deliver you a resource advantage when it destroys a unit like that. So the resource swing in this case is actually just the removal, and we're not playing units isn't in and of itself a dice advantaged thing to do. It's actually one-sided attacks or removal spells or other things that are going to the thing that actually creates those net resource swings.
Right. Yeah, makes sense. And so in this case, when it says um, split Koji, what
Yeah,
does that mean? So in this case, we know that Carl has spent four. Well, he spent 4 dice, so he spent three
right,
more than the James player who spent one
right.
for the light swordsman. How does that
Yeah.
translate?
So if you hover over the round 2.7
Mm-hmm.
bar, you'll see that it says split Koji Wolf Cub proactive, James Undersight reactive. So what it's telling you is that James is behind on the board, but he's got a lot of unspent dice to Carl's. Carl is now behind on dice, but ahead on the board.
Okay.
So that's the split. And we should see that if we click on the dice advantage versus the battlefield advantage.
So if I'll bring up both of these,
Yeah.
and that was round
Are you just
7.
looking at the total resource advantage, or are you looking at?
No, I switched to dice and
Okay.
battlefield value.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here you can see when you have the dice advantage and the battlefield value, you'll see the um, James having the 3 more unspent dice. So if you hover over in round 2.7, that first beige or maroon bar, whatever you
Yep.
want to call that color, brown, he's got 3 more dice to spend, and then Koji's now got a half more dice worth of units on the battlefield, which means he's got one of those units that one of those exceptions. So like
Wolfpack.
raptor herders, the wolves, I give a little because they don't cost dice to bring in. The raptor in a raptor herder will be a half die. And the herder itself will be a half die. I kind of overrode things just to try and more accurately reflect certain situations. So you can see the split there where James is holding more dice back, but Koji's got the battlefield advantage, and that's generating that split situation.
Yeah, yeah, I see that, and it has the nice little button that tells you Koji Wolf Club value 6.5 dice
Right,
of units.
right.
Very cool. Okay, and why does it say it when it says split James or split Koji? What is which
Yeah,
player is the
that's
one
one of
that's
the.
listed?
I think it's generally the proactive player that's listed first. I think it is the proactive player that's listed first.
Okay.
But this is one of the things I want to fix is like how this bar is displayed at the bottom because it's pretty compressed, obviously. If you
Mm-hmm.
scroll down just for the people to see, um, there is a text game narrative which I built so that anyone could read it, but also so Shadow and anyone else who has any kind of visual impairment but uses a screen reader can get a lot of the analysis. Including those game states. And then it also calls out and expands the big hype turns where there are big resource swings one way or another. So you can actually see the dynamic that happens in line in that narrative.
Yeah, and it's funny. It also includes when, um, like it includes their chat as well. I think because it says
Yeah.
EB Fritz. Oh, lol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not gonna take their chat out. Um, I think the one other thing just to show is like we should see the game summary real quick. So you can sort of see I've got these efficiency and other kinds of statistics then summarized below this once you're done looking through this, and you can see in the blood points what your opponent's starting health was and what their final health was, what how much damage you dealt while you were in control of the battlefield versus how much and then how much damage you dealt from attacking versus other kinds of damage dealt.
So let's
And then
let's
there's
go
this,
through that.
yeah,
Like, what does damage
yeah,
in control mean? Because this is in this
percent of
case.
damage and control, yeah,
In this case, if I look at the James player, 72, we'll just say 73% of the damage done
yeah,
by James was in control. 100% was from attacking.
Right.
And
So
then on Carl's
yeah,
side, or sorry, on Koji's side, it was
yeah,
27 and 73.
right. So the percentage of damage in control means what percentage of of your damage did you deal while you were in control of the battlefield. So were you dealing damage while ahead in the battlefield, or were you like doing bypass damage, for example? At least that's what is intended to do. And then the percentage of damage for attacking is how much damage you dealt by attacking versus other kinds of things, burn spells. I'm kind of surprised that Koji isn't 100%. So again, there are bugs in here that I haven't squashed all of. So it's possible that like some certain kinds of damage, like guarding, that should be picked up. But I'm not quite sure why that's not 100%. So
It could also
oh
be
no,
because they
it's right there. It's
conceded, right?
fatigue.
Oh, yeah,
No,
fatigue
yeah, it's
damage.
from fatigue. So James started taking fatigue, basically, is what happened. Um, and actually, that's all of the damage that Koji dealt while in control. So basically, what happened was James had decked out, was starting to take fatigue, couldn't win the battlefield back, and that's when EB Fritz conceded. I mean, we can go back to the chat logs to check that that's all true, but um,
Cool.
so the net carryover value then below this one is tracking how much value of how much dice worth of value have you been able to carry on the battlefield from round to round, and compares it to your opponents. So these are always going to be, one's going to be positive number, one's going to be a negative number. So over the whole course of the game, James like netted across the whole game carried a little bit more value through, like a half unit more on net. But obviously he didn't have that value advantage when it mattered, which was once he decked out at the end of the game. So he'd managed to carry over more value generally over the course of the game, but didn't have it at the very end. So this also tells you things like the total dice value of units and alterations played. Like Koji put 47 dice worth of value and alterations on the field. Is this Koji a creeper deck by
Uh,
chance? Or is it
it's no.
no?
I have to. Let me just quickly take a look at the
Oh, it's
game.
probably from all the value from wolf
It's
packs too,
probably wolf
probably.
packs. Yeah,
Yeah.
if I had to guess. I forget it's Cinder Spirit and oh no. I don't have the game open. Hold on. Replay Carl. I forget if I had done this in a more timely
Oh, that's
manner.
also Panther Spirits.
He's got
And it is
Oh,
Indigo
yeah, it
Creeper.
is Creeper. He's
Yeah.
got
So these are
multiple
creepers.
Cinder Spirit books too.
Right. So he's sneaking all sorts of value in. So like creepers are generating value. There's a creeper chain. If you don't stay on top of that, like I do value Brilliant Thorns at 2 dice a piece, I think. So like that's a huge thing. I don't know if he ever actually gets Brilliant Thorns in this game.
He's got a lot of dual units like Huntmaster, Wolfpack Leader. I
Yeah,
think
the
he's
Panther
got
Spirits.
Raptor Herder as well. Um,
Yep. So all those things will build up over the course of the game.
yeah, like at
And
one point, his battlefield is Wolfpack, 3-pack wolves, and a creeper on
mhm,
board, for instance.
yeah. Um, so even with all that, it's pretty impressive actually that James managed to maintain more carryover value on overall, and I think that actually points you to why. And we can look at the other game if we have time, but like why EB Fritz actually ended up winning the other game in this championship was like this James deck is incredibly effective. Um, so can take like face a kind of 15 something like a 15 dice disadvantage in terms of like what your opponent's doing to produce units. They're not super high value units, and we may be overvaluing them because they're just stats, a lot of them. So that's net carryover value. I think it's generally interesting. Like it lines up with your intuition. Like generally, when you're playing a mill deck, for example, and you're trying to build up a big battlefield and you're getting knelt, like you'll have a massive net carryover value versus the mill deck. So I think that's a helpful thing to see. And then
Yeah,
the damage, yes, sorry.
I think what's interesting too is not all games are the same, and especially one in which there was a concession because as a battlefield deck, sometimes you just can't break through, and so you look at the
Right.
damage, healing, and dice, and you realize that, oh well, both players did the same amount of damage to each other, and
Right.
they both, well, in fact, the James player spent fewer dice, but
Right.
knowing that it's a concession, if you're an all ally deck, right? Like there's
Right.
some implicit value of having multiple books where eventually you know that you're going to burn out, and that sort of translates to decks in the past that we've talked about that do well, like the classic Zookeeper or any
Right.
4 book board. You win
Right.
late game if you can get, or mill decks when you can get to
Right.
just spamming more units out,
Right.
your opponent can't do anything. So it's, I guess the question is, what is this tool? What do you expect this tool to do, or how you expect people to use it versus what it is not?
Yeah. Well, just to say one last thing, I do think the story of this game actually is this last stat block on the damage per heal
Oh
plus heal
yeah.
per card,
Okay.
because that's where we see the card advantage that a spellboard based deck like the Koji with, having all the spellboard action generates, where it looks like Carl only played 11 cards over the course of the game to James's 21, possibly with some recursion. And then meditated a bunch. So again, this might be an issue of parsing where we've got a kind of 34 cards played plus meditated by James. Could mean he's recurring things. It could also mean that there's some errors are getting picked up. But generally, I think we can be pretty confident that it is actually in this card efficiency that is what delivered Koji the win, because we know James decked out, started taking fatigue damage. He just wasn't able to turn his cards into an advantage
I
in the
wonder
same way that Koji was.
if that is related to Soulfire, because
Oh
effectively
yeah,
when you play it
that's
3
true.
cards, I think it shows in the log that you're taking those 3 cards
Yeah,
out of
maybe
the discard.
they may be double counting those cards. In any case, so you ask, what do I imagine this tool to do? I mean, one, what maybe I'll put it this way. What I found it useful for is like, and in the earlier analysis I did, is just building one's intuition about resource advantage. When people talk about resource advantage, like what does that mean? Like, and it was a pretty good example earlier where like, why is there, a resource swing when Carl is playing 4 dice worth of units to the battlefield and Evie just played 1 and made an attack? And it's because, when we're talking about dice advantages, until those, or talking about resource advantage, until the units you play actually deliver you some value, whether it's in doing damage to the opponent Phoenixborn or removing units from their battlefield, you've really just shifted resources from one pool, your unspent dice, to another pool, the value on your battlefield. And once it's on your battlefield, it's vulnerable, but it's also active, obviously, and able to do things. So um, I think it's just helped build my intuition to understand what are the really impressive and important moments in a game. And I've found a lot of value in, and I'll maybe make a video of this, where I use this tool to go back to one of the collection games, looked at one of those hype turns, went back a couple turns, and was able to actually pinpoint the moment where a sequencing decision um, basically turned the game. Like a choice to play a certain alteration on a certain unit at that moment left the dice unavailable to then be spent later on like an ice trap or something, and it like swung the whole game. And just looking for those hype turns where there are big resource swings, and using that to then try and go back a little bit and see what produced that swing is, I think, really actually a pretty efficient way to take what is obviously a big chat log, a lot of stuff happening, and really pinpoint where did this game turn, what decisions produced it, and could there be alternative ways of going about it. What I don't think is, I wouldn't get obsessed about any of these numbers. I wouldn't say like, oh, a good player needs to have at least, X damage plus heal per dice. Like that's so matchup dependent and so dependent on the actual dynamics of the game. The other thing I'm interested in, which is much more speculative, is like, can we and I've experimented with this. Can we batch process like all of the Phoenix League games over like a 3 month period from all players and start to pull out any trends? Like, are we seeing certain cards really being used in key moments and delivering outsized value? I actually made a little leaderboard of cards, and like the cards that tend to be delivering a lot of value in the collection are a lot of the ones you'd expect. Like Light Swordsman is often related to value swings, like Reverberate delivers a lot of value on the spell side. Fester's often associated with big value swings, although that's a little bit of the parsing engine where it doesn't really associate the nature ping with the Fester as kind of a 2 dice cost. It's just looking at the Fester 1 dice cost with the 3 unit removal.
Right.
So anyway, yeah, I mean, I think it's just a way of exploring if you're really into the game, and in the same way that you might look at different lines in a chess analysis program, using this tool to go to key turns and think about alternative lines, I think is just fun and extends the way in which we can analyze the game and interact with it and talk about it.
I yeah, I guess just a quick thought specific to Fester. I think measuring Fester on
Yeah,
its own is important, but if you were doing batch analysis, you would also want to measure or track at least dice power
yeah,
usage, and so that would, because sometimes you could just Fester a unit that you've already done damage to from something else, right?
right,
You might have a unit like Cinder Spirit that
right.
gives you that implicit ping. But I like that we're on the path to putting into words certain things that we've, as a community, I don't know, formulated or agreed upon implicitly, or discussed
Hmm.
in certain ways, where it's like, when we rank cards, a lot of us might have very specific nuances as to where a card is in the top 50, for
Right,
instance. But for the most part, the competitive players will tend to agree on what those 50 cards are. And it's really interesting when you're talking about, like, well, how do those cards translate into a game, or why are those good? Or when we talk
right.
about guarding, why are those things important to reserve, or when you use it? Now that we have tools to assess those values, and Ashes has always been one of those games where you can look back on a game and see the forks in the road that you could have changed, or where something went wrong. Like, I think that's really easy to tell, but then to also compare it to the value that generated is really interesting. And so I'm curious to start using this, maybe in um, like pairing it with commentary at the end of a game, to be like, oh man, that was where I thought something was done incorrectly, and then looking at the graph and seeing, oh yeah, like 2 turns or 2 rounds down the road, or not rounds, 2 turns down the road, that's where there was a big resource swing, and it was because of that
Right,
one pivotal moment.
right. Yeah. Yeah, I think those are all good use cases, and I do have an OBS overlay mode for you, where if you open this as a layer, you can and set, the color to transparent. You can just have it over your stream. We can experiment with that. But yeah, I think those are things to experiment with, and I think a lot of this is up for conversation. Like, um, it's very hard to track exhaustion tokens from the chat, and um, so we're not really capturing when things are exhausted or not. So like the value of Sonic Swordsman is not really being captured in its to the full extent.
Hmm.
Um, although you can see when it's doing its damage, it tends to break guard quite a lot. Obviously, we know that. So like there's a lot of nuance. Obviously, this is never going to capture all the nuances of a game. It's really a way of, I think, navigating the complexity to say, yeah, what story are the numbers telling, and how does that point us to then a more nuanced analysis of what's really gone on.
So bringing it to a new-ish player, or even just an experienced player, but someone who's just starting to use this tool for the first time, you've got all these layers. You've got the game summary. What
Yeah.
is what's the first thing, or maybe the main thing, that someone should look at? Like, obviously, having all the layers is way too much
A
to
lot.
take in.
Yeah.
What do you suggest people looking at as like a starting point to be like, oh, yeah, that was interesting?
Yeah, I would just look at the total resource advantage. That's the first chart I'd look at. Like, look at where things swung really substantially. Consider the what actually what happened. Open your replay around and go to those turns and look around what happened. I mean, you'll probably remember them because there'll be standout moments in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, I would start there. And also, I would compare that in particular with what you think your deck was trying to do. Like, I think if you are let's say a very Knights-driven Herald deck, if you're not accumulating carryover value, like if you're behind on carryover value, you didn't accomplish your deck's goal, I think, generally speaking. Like, you want to be using Herald stock and your big Knights to really be accumulating a bunch of value on your battlefield, I would think.
Yeah, yeah, because you are investing so much that if you can't
Right,
carry that value over, you're never going to catch up.
exactly. And you've got all the so yeah, like look to see like my deck, or if I'm playing like a burn deck, I really ought to see high damage plus heal per dice. Like if I'm not converting a really high rate of damage from dice, I've got a problem in either my game plan or what I did, or I never really got to it. Like there are moments, and this happened in our game, our Phoenix League game. I I have a tendency, even when I'm playing a deck that's probably capable of racing and needs to race in a given matchup, of playing too slow. And so, um, in our particular matchup, I had an Odette deck. I fell a little bit short. Had I started racing earlier, I might have been able to get there.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't put that game into chat, but like, or into analyze it, but like, you know, it's worth really considering then on the stats. Like, what was I able to do in terms of efficiency? I was definitely behind, I think. And what does that say about the decisions I made early on to try and prioritize battlefield control? And did I really need to do that? Like, that's a bypass deck. Bypass decks, I think, often are willing to let your opponent have carryover value, let your opponent have units on the battlefield in exchange for dealing damage to face. So you should be seeing a pattern of like, maybe zero or even negative net carryover value, but higher damage plus heal per dice. So those are the kinds of things I think it's worth kind of interrogating as you think about whether your deck did the things you wanted it to do in a given matchup.
I brought it up just for
Okay.
fun. Um,
Well, I'm
just
gonna have
to
to find it now.
Yeah, net carryover value was actually zero.
Yeah, so we were
Um,
even on the battlefield.
and then damage, heal, and dice, I was at 0.95 and you were at 0.46. So like you said, you were not
Yeah,
converting any of your value. And I think the game blood points 18 to 12. So like you did damage, it just you didn't race.
right.
Um,
I didn't race soon enough for sure.
and round
And I didn't, and it's not like my attempt to try and control the battlefield actually produced that. And you can actually see, like, in the beginning,
Oh, it's definitely
I've,
Soulfire. That's the problem. Cards played 15 and you only played 8.
yeah,
Yeah, I think
yeah,
that's the.
yeah, Soulfire's over counting cards, so I can try and fix that. See, it's always something. But like, if you pull up the battlefield value chart, um,
Yep.
so like round one, that's the round where had I decided to start racing, I've got the battlefield advantage, and I'm not delivering a lot of damage actually.
Yeah,
I
let
don't
me see
think.
the attacks. Battlefield. Um,
Yeah, so or look at the health. Like my health bar is going down and I'm building battlefield value. I convert some of it. I give you a good 3 damage whack in like turn 10. But that's it. And I don't get another hit to face again until mid round two.
yeah. Yeah. And even just when I looked at the total resource advantage in the second half of round two is when I put down. Oh wait, what did, did this not? That's weird. Oh wait, if
What's that?
I got it. No, it still shows. So just a little bug. It still shows the chat for Fritz and Carl's game. Because I
Oh,
haven't clicked
interesting.
on anything new. So if I click on something new,
Oh,
now
oh,
it
I
brings
see.
it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Like,
So I think it's because I played. I'm curious. I played Widows a couple times, and I think that's where it swung some battlefield, like near the end.
yeah, you killed my Skybreak captain like in round 2, turn 5 with a um
Fester.
Fester.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I should have known that that was a big, like that was a blunder. I think that was an unexhausted Skybreak captain.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that I had been trying to decide whether I should swing or not. So look at the resource swings. It'll probably tell you where you screwed up or took advantage of an opponent's mistake. But like I think the story of this game is really like my failure to really convert any more of my round one battlefield advantage into damage. And like I really just didn't race fast enough.
Yeah.
Not nearly fast enough.
Yeah, I really like it. I'm layering health and battlefield value together, so it really is interesting to see that you were ahead on the battlefield virtually the entire game, but you just didn't convert
Right,
any of it.
right, right.
Um, and that's because you were playing knights and you have Odette, which is free, free removal, but it's still damage. And I was playing very low to the ground, just like drop and swing with
Yeah,
Widows and Sally. So
right.
that's
It's
pretty
River
cool.
Colossus, Shade Prowler, and Skybreak Captains is what I was playing a lot of. And the Shade Prowlers are coming off the board, so like, you know,
Hmm.
I'm losing a little bit of value at the end of every round when those Shade Prowlers come off if they haven't been destroyed already. Um, but what I really, the River Colossus was the thing I needed to be swinging through, and the Skybreak Captains were basically useless. But, anyway, yeah, I think that's the kind of thing to look at. And you were often ahead, right? You were ahead. You might have been behind on the battlefield, but you were ahead on dice advantage.
Mm-hmm.
That's why all these splits are happening. So yeah, I was committing more resources to the board faster to win the board. I was spending health to keep the board, but I wasn't using the board to swing through, which when you are a bypass deck, which is fundamentally what a deck with River Colossus and Shade Prowler probably wants to be doing, especially when it's facing a board of one health units. I should have been a lot more aggressive with that River Colossus.
I would be curious, although I don't. Well, in theory, we could do it. We're paired up again for Phoenix League. Um, like, if you took this knowledge and we had the same matchup, and you're like, oh, I just need to actually commit my value, how that would
Right.
change the outcome of a game. Like using the tool and the sort of things that you can extract, knowing how the first game went and seeing what that meant from a data point of view, and then changing your strategy or plan. In this case, racing, committing to the race, if that turns it around. And
Yeah. I
consequently, I mean,
mean,
then it gets into, like, well, I know that you're trying to do this, so like, do I change my plan? Yada yada
right.
yada. But if
Right.
fundamentally, is that how you
Right.
could use it?
Yeah. I mean, knowing me, I'd probably find another way to get totally pantsed, but yeah, that's one thing you could do. I mean, I definitely think I haven't played this deck again, but it's definitely a thing I've been thinking about. And it's part of I have thought a lot about like Matt plays a lot of decks like this lately, Shade Prowler, River Colossus. And Matt is one of the rare, I feel like, top 5 players who actually commits to the battlefield earlier in rounds, not universally, but like he'll play his big threats and then just kind of dare you to deal with them.
Mm-hmm.
and I am so uncomfortable doing that. Like I feel so scared when I do that. But I think it's all mindset related. It's like I really, you know, you're just playing fundamentally a different game. I think part of me is like such an intuitive control player that it's hard for me to really just commit to be to like the full send. So yeah,
Yeah, I'd love to analyze like each player. We each of the great players we sort of know has their own tendencies, both in styles of deck that they play, but also
right,
like ultimately they're all very good at carrying over value and knowing when to trade, which is the hardest skill in Ashes.
yeah,
And you have someone like Brian who will somehow manage to stay evenish on board, but always have way more dice than the other player. And then you have someone like Matt, where one of the most recent games, I think it was him versus Carl actually in the collection, and he'll he'll play a very low density. Sorry, he'll play a
right,
very high density of units, so very few
right.
units to the board,
With a lot of value per
with
unit.
a
Yeah,
ton of value. And sometimes it's a matter of like he plays a Shade Prowler with a massive growth, right off the bat, turn two, turn three, and then he just plays chicken. Like he just dares you to commit anything to the
right,
board, and he's like, okay, either I'm gonna race you and hit you face for 6, and
right,
then use coal to try and clean up the board, or you're going to put a unit down a knight and you can't do anything. And he'll pass, and he's
right,
comfortable with those turns, which
right,
always make me, like you said, I'm uncomfortable with playing one book, most of the time, one book decks. There's something
right.
about that's just not my style. Or versus, someone like EB Fritz, who plays very fast, very, not necessarily aggressive, but he likes to play the Kojis and the Jameses, and he plays a very different style.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think those are really good observations. And I think the other thing that I learned, it was actually a Matt game that I analyzed. So I've got like, I need to put this video up. I'm intending it. This has not turned into a 30-minute video. I do have this idea for this 30-minute video to really analyze this turn in one of Matt's collection games. But the way he uses the illusion dice power in that game is next level. Like he basically spends one illusion dice power at a critical moment that destroys his opponent's round because I mean, Matt doesn't totally know this, although I think he's got a pretty good idea, but they're on a couple of reactions and side actions in their hand, and like they cannot figure out their like meditation sequencing to get out from behind that, and it helps him keep a unit on the board way longer than it had any right to, and keep it out of danger of fate reflection, other things. Keep I think it was a light swordsman off the board. Like, yeah, the sequencing is really important, but I have a newfound respect for figuring out how to actually use the illusion dice power effectively. I know we talk about Wolf Down, but like Matt repeatedly uses that power in ways that are so smart. And yeah, they're gambles because you don't know exactly what your opponent has, but they're gambles where you avoid the worst case outcome for yourself. And so therefore they have a lot of value, especially when you've got a lot of value committed to the field. So yeah, I think
Very
it's
cool.
super cool. Yeah.
Well, we're getting to 59 minutes and 58 seconds, so that's as good a time as any. We kept it under 2 hours, so
Under 2 hours.
under 2 hours.
The Jankyard value promise. Insights per minute, very low. But eventually we get to a critical mass, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's really just a matter of critical mass about people taking this tool up, finding ways of even just sharing screenshots of like one game versus
Oh,
another or something that they had.
yeah. So I feel like I should just before we totally I don't know if you've closed it, but there is like an
Oh,
export report and a copy for Discord. So like the copy for Discord copies text that you can just like drop into Discord and summarize it. So I'd love to see more people doing that. Like has headline statistics and reports out the hypest turn, the turn with the biggest resource swing in the game. And then the export report gives you
Oh,
downloads in HTML that you can load and just see all the charts, all the data, and you can just save it on your computer, save that, share that HTML, and we can just look at it and talk about it.
that's very cool. I did not know about that. That's awesome. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
So
Well, there
share
you go.
games.
Share games for sure. I love it. Well, thank you
Thanks.
for doing this. I will get to trying to incorporate this into OBS at some point. I think the
Or
next thing.
don't.
No, I will. I probably won't. The next thing on my list that I've proposed no such method I was going to do was to commentate some of the Blitz games. And part of me is thinking that I should actually try and commentate them in a Blitz manner, like give myself 20 minutes to commentate them. So just have them go and then see if I can keep up. But
Yeah,
that
you
would
should do
not be
it.
the time to do a Vermillion visualization. But when I get to like maybe a regular game, or if there's anyone who wants me to review a game, then that could be something where we break it down. But yeah, you could
Yeah,
stream on your own too. So there you go.
I could. I mean, yeah, you should definitely do Blitz games. Mostly because I actually made Top Cut in that one and I won a Top Cut game.
Yeah,
So you should
yeah,
definitely
very hype.
commentate. Only one so far. We'll see if I get any more.
You could do it. I believe in you.
Thanks. All
Um,
right.
Shadow, yeah, I'll take a look at a game like at another point. I think an hour is a good place to cut this off, and I want to wrap my head around just like some games before I just like talk about them. Um,
Yeah, probably
that
should have done that this time.
no,
But,
this
you
was
know,
good to more like introduce what the tool is and how to use the tool, and then we
yeah,
can break analysis down of super hype games later.
sounds good.
All right, I'm back to back off to sleep.
All right.
Thanks,
Have a good night.
everyone. Have a great night, and we'll catch you hopefully more regularly. Ciao. Oh, if you're not janky,
Later.
you're stanky. Frog up,
Yep.
wolf down.
Later.